From the void came a human warship. Part 6. 5 years had passed since the humans returned from the void. Captain Zara Keth, now Admiral of the reformed Kalani Defense Fleet, stood in the council chambers of the Galactic Assembly on the neutral world of Harmony Station. Representatives from 100 worlds filled the Great Hall. Beings of every shape and size imaginable sat in carefully arranged sections. Former enemies now worked together to build something the galaxy had never seen before. A government based on cooperation instead of conquest. At the center of the hall sat 12 figures in simple black uniforms. The human delegation. They had been invited to every meeting for 5 years, but they never voted on anything. They only watched and occasionally offered advice when asked. Today was different. Today they had called for the session. Admiral Sarah Martinez rose from her seat. The entire hall fell silent. Even after 5 years, the sight of a human addressing the assembly made everyone nervous. Honored delegates, Martinez began, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. We have come to say goodbye. A wave of whispers swept through the hall. Some voices sounded relieved. Others sounded worried. A few sounded almost panicked. Zara felt her own heart skip a beat. She had known this day would come, but she was not sure the galaxy was ready. 5 years ago, we returned to this galaxy to end the Vorth Empire. Martinez continued. That task is complete. The Vorth are no longer a threat to anyone. The worlds they conquered have been freed. The species they enslaved have been liberated. She paused and looked around the hall. Her eyes met Zara's for a moment, and the Admiral saw something there that might have been sadness. More importantly, Martinez went on, you have built something we never thought possible. A government where different species work together as equals. A military force dedicated to defending peace instead of conquering territory. A trade network that benefits everyone instead of just the strongest. The Galactic Assembly was indeed something new. Former enemies like the Kalani and the Morgoth now served together on joint committees. Worlds that had been isolated for centuries now shared technology and culture. The galaxy was more united than it had ever been in recorded history. We are proud of what you have accomplished, Martinez said, which is why we know you no longer need us. A delegate from the Centauran Republic stood up. Admiral Martinez, with respect, there are still threats in the galaxy. Pirates, slavers, rogue nations that refuse to join the assembly. How can we handle these without your help? Martinez smiled slightly. The same way species handled such problems for millions of years before humans existed. Together. Another delegate rose. This one was from the former Vorth territory. But what if another empire rises? What if someone like the Vorth appears again? Then you will face them as you are facing them now, Martinez replied. United. The galaxy has learned something in these 5 years that the Vorth never understood. Real strength does not come from conquering others. It comes from helping them. Zara stood up. As one of the senior members of the assembly, she had the right to address the human delegation directly. Admiral Martinez, on behalf of the Kalani people and the entire assembly, I want to thank you for everything you have done. Our worlds are free because of your sacrifice. Your worlds are free because you chose freedom, Martinez corrected. We just removed the obstacles. But without human protection, can we really maintain this peace? Martinez looked around the hall again. When she spoke, her voice was firm but kind. Admiral Keth, 5 years ago your people were refugees running from an enemy you could not defeat. Today you command a fleet of 50 ships and serve as the senior military advisor to a government that spans half the galaxy. Do you really think you still need our protection? Zara felt a flush of pride mixed with fear. The humans were right, of course. The galaxy had changed dramatically. The Assembly Defense Force now included ships and crews from dozens of worlds. Former enemies had become allies. Trade had replaced conquest as the path to prosperity. But everyone knew that the peace was maintained by the presence of human ships. What would happen when those ships left? Admiral Martinez, said a delegate from the Outer Rim. Where will you go? Back to the void between galaxies, Martinez replied. Back to our people who are building new worlds in empty space. Back to the life we chose when we left this galaxy the first time. Will you ever return? Martinez was quiet for a moment. I hope not, she said finally. If we return, it will mean that something has gone very wrong here. It will mean you have forgotten the lessons of the last 5 years. She walked to the center of the hall so everyone could see her clearly. People of this galaxy, she said, we did not come back to rule you. We came back to remind you of something you had forgotten. that good people have the right to defend themselves, that peaceful species do not have to bow to conquerors, that freedom is worth fighting for. Her voice grew stronger. You have remembered those lessons. You have built fleets to protect trade routes. You have formed alliances to defend weak worlds. You have created laws that protect the innocent. You no longer need teachers. An old Zelk delegate struggled to his feet. His species had been enslaved by the Vorth for 2 centuries. The humans freed my people from chains we wore for generations. How can we repay such a debt? Martinez walked over to the old Zelk and placed her hand gently on his shoulder. By never wearing chains again, honored elder. By making sure no one else has to wear them either. The hall was completely silent now. Everyone understood that history was being made. In 1 month, all human ships will depart this galaxy, Martinez announced. We leave behind no bases, no governors, no administrators. We take nothing with us except the knowledge that this galaxy is in good hands. A young delegate from one of the newly freed worlds stood up. Admiral, what if we fail? What if we cannot maintain the peace you helped create? Martinez turned to look at him with those ancient, sad eyes that all humans seem to have. Then you will pick yourselves up and try again, she said simply. That is what good people do. They fail, they learn, they try again. They never give up. She walked back to the human delegation. We have one final gift before we leave. Not weapons or technology, something more valuable. She gestured to an aide who brought forward a simple data crystal. This contains the complete history of humanity's time in this galaxy. Our successes, our failures, our greatest victories and our worst mistakes. Learn from our errors so you do not repeat them. Zara accepted the crystal on behalf of the assembly. It felt warm in her hands as if it contained not just data but the souls of an entire species. There is one more thing, Martinez said. Her voice was softer now, almost a whisper. We know you are afraid. Afraid of what will happen when we leave. That is natural. Fear keeps you alert, but do not let fear rule you. She looked directly at Zara. 5 years ago, you told me you wished there could be another choice besides freedom with fear or slavery without fear. We are giving you that choice now. Freedom without us. The session ended an hour later. As delegates filed out of the hall, Zara approached the human delegation. Most of them were already gone, but Captain Chen remained. Captain, she said, I wanted to ask you something personal. Chen nodded. Of course, Admiral. Do you regret coming back? Knowing that you will leave behind a galaxy that fears you? Chen thought for a moment. Admiral Keith, my species learned something important during our exile in the void. It is better to be feared for doing good than loved for doing nothing. And if the galaxy forgets the lessons you taught? Chen smiled sadly. Then our children will have to remember them for you. 1 month later, Zara stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station and watched the last human ship prepare to depart. The Defiant hung in space like a mountain of metal and memory, ready to disappear into the void that had given it birth. Captain Chen's voice came over the communication system one final time. This is the Terran vessel, Defiant to all ships and stations in this galaxy. We came from the void when no help was expected. We return to the void now that help is no longer needed. Guard what you have built here. It is precious beyond measure. The Defiant began to move away from the station. As it reached the edge of the system, space itself began to bend and twist around the massive ship. Reality folded like paper as the human vessel prepared to tear a hole in the fabric of existence itself. Goodbye, Zara whispered. The ship vanished, taking with it the last physical presence of humanity in the galaxy. For the first time in 5 years, the children of 1,000 worlds were truly alone among the stars. In the days that followed, some people panicked. Some celebrated. Most simply went back to their daily lives, building the future that humans had died to protect. Years passed. Decades. The galaxy grew and prospered under the watch of the Assembly. New worlds joined the Alliance. Old enemies became closer friends. Trade flourished along routes that were safe from pirates and conquerors. Sometimes, when the night was very dark and the stars seemed cold and distant, people would look up at the void between galaxies and remember the ships that had come from that emptiness to save them. And sometimes, just sometimes, they thought they could see a glimmer of light in that darkness, a reminder that somewhere out there, the children of Earth were still watching. From the void came a human warship, part 5 6 months after the fall of the Vorth Empire. Captain Zara Keth stood on the surface of her homeworld for the first time since its destruction. The air smelled of growing things instead of ash and death. Where once there had been burned cities, new buildings rose toward the sky. Where poisoned rivers had run black, clean water flowed again. The humans had kept their word. They had not just defeated the Vorth Empire. They had healed the worlds that Empire had broken. "It is beautiful," said her first officer, standing beside her on the hill overlooking New Kelith City. "How did they do it so quickly?" Zara watched human construction machines working in the distance. They moved like living things, reshaping the landscape with tools that seemed to bend reality itself. "I stopped trying to understand human technology," she said. "It is like magic to us." A year ago, Zara would have been the happiest person in the galaxy to see her world reborn. But now she felt a deep sadness mixed with her joy, because she knew the price that had been paid. The humans had liberated 40 star systems in 3 months. They had freed billions of slaves and returned dozens of worlds to their original inhabitants. They had dismantled the greatest military empire the galaxy had ever seen without mercy or hesitation. And they had done it all with just 50 ships. The Vorth resistance had lasted exactly 6 days. Emperor Vexka had surrendered rather than watch his species be exterminated, but some of his generals had chosen to fight. They had gathered the remaining Vorth fleets and made desperate attacks on human vessels. Zara had watched some of those battles on news broadcasts. They were not battles, they were executions. The Vorth threw everything they had at the human ships and accomplished nothing. In return, entire Vorth battle groups simply stopped existing. When it was over, the Vorth Empire was gone. Not just defeated, gone. Their military was destroyed. Their weapons were confiscated. Their government was dissolved. The surviving Vorth were relocated to a single world under human supervision, forbidden from ever leaving. A species that had ruled 40 star systems now lived on one planet and would never travel to the stars again. "Captain," her first officer said quietly, "do you think the humans will really leave?" That was the question that haunted Zara's dreams. Admiral Martinez had promised that the humans would withdraw once the galaxy was stable. But what did stable mean to beings with such power? "I do not know," Zara replied honestly. They walked down the hill toward the city. Human engineers worked, alongside Kalani construction crews, rebuilding what had been lost. The humans were always polite and helpful. They shared their technology freely and asked for nothing in return. But Zara had seen what they could do when they chose to be something other than helpful. She thought about the reports that came from across the galaxy. The Zelk Empire had voluntarily dismantled its slave markets after 3 human ships visited their capital. The Morgoth pirates had surrendered their entire fleet after watching a single human vessel destroy their main base. The hegemony of Steel had released all political prisoners and adopted a new constitution. After a brief conversation with human diplomats, no one fought the humans anymore. No one even argued with them. The galaxy had learned what happened to those who opposed the returned children of Earth. "Captain Keth." Zara turned to see Captain Marcus Chen approaching. He walked alone, as always. His black uniform was simple and unmarked, but every person in the city moved out of his way with respectful fear. "Captain Chen," Zara replied. "How are the planetary repairs progressing?" "Ahead of schedule," Chen said. "Your world should be fully restored within another 2 months. The atmospheric processors have cleared most of the remaining toxins." They walked together through the busy streets. Kalani children played games around the human machines. Their parents worked alongside human technicians. Everyone seemed happy and grateful. But Zara noticed that no one looked directly at the humans for very long. Even gratitude had limits when it came to beings who could unmake worlds with a thought. "Captain Chen," Zara said carefully, "may I ask you something?" "Of course. The other races in the galaxy, the ones who are not Vorth, they are afraid of humans now." Chen nodded sadly. "I know. Is that what you wanted?" Chen stopped walking. Around them, the sounds of reconstruction continued. Human machines and alien workers building a new world together. "No," he said quietly. "But it was inevitable. We knew this would happen when we decided to return. Will the fear ever go away? In time, when people realize that we really will leave, when they see that we want nothing from them except the chance to help. Zara hoped he was right, but she remembered her history lessons. Fear of power was not easily forgotten even when that power was used for good purposes. They continued walking until they reached the memorial park at the center of the city. Stone markers bore the names of everyone who had died when the Vorth destroyed the original Caliph. Millions of names carved in black stone. Chen stopped in front of the largest memorial. It was dedicated to the children who had died. His old eyes looked even sadder as he read the names. "This is why we came back," he said softly. "Not for glory, not for conquest. For them." Zara watched him study the memorial. "Captain Chen, do you regret what you had to do?" Chen was quiet for a long moment. "I regret that it was necessary, but I do not regret doing it, even knowing how afraid people are of you now, especially knowing that." Chen looked at her with those ancient, tired eyes. "Captain Keth, would you rather have your people live in freedom and fear us, or live in slavery and not fear us?" The question was simple, but the answer felt complicated. "Freedom," Zara said finally. "But I wish there could be another choice." "So do we," Chen replied. "That is why we will leave when our work is finished." "When will that be?" Chen gazed up at the sky where human ships moved like distant stars. "When the galaxy can defend itself against the next empire that rises. When peaceful people like your ancestors have the strength to say no to conquerors. And if no such empire rises, there will always be another empire, Captain Keth. Power seeks to expand. It is the nature of things. The best we can do is prepare good people to resist it." That evening, Zara stood on her apartment balcony looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled the trade routes that were finally safe again. Former slaves built new lives on worlds that were free again. The galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in centuries, and everyone was terrified of the beings who had made that peace possible. Zara thought about Captain Chen's words. Maybe fear was the price of safety. Maybe some gifts came with shadows that could never be lifted. But as she watched her people's children playing in streets that would have been graveyards without human intervention, she decided that shadows were better than darkness, even if those shadows had the power to blot out the sun. From the void came a human warship. Part 4. The Vorth Imperial Palace stood at the center of Korthak Prime like a mountain of black crystal and hate. Inside its highest tower, Emperor Vexka received the news that would change everything. "All 100 ships destroyed?" The Emperor hissed through his mandibles. His forearms clicked together in rage. "By one vessel?" General Morthek bowed low before his master. His exoskeleton bore fresh scars from recent battles. "Yes, my Emperor." "The survivors' reports are all the same. A massive ship appeared from nowhere. Our weapons could not harm it." "Their weapons..." He paused, struggling with the words. "Their weapons made our ships disappear." Emperor Vexka had ruled the Vorth Empire for 30 years. He had conquered 40 star systems and enslaved a dozen species. Nothing had ever challenged his power before. "What species build such ships?" he demanded. "The survivors heard them identify themselves as humans, my Emperor." Vexka's black eyes widened. Even the Vorth remembered the old stories. Humans were legends from before the Empire began. A race that had vanished into the void before anyone alive was born. "Humans are myths," Vexka said, but his voice was not certain. "Perhaps not, my Emperor. Our archives mention them. Ancient records say they once traveled between stars like we do now." The Emperor moved to the great window of his throne room. Below him stretched the capital city of his empire. Millions of Vorth lived and worked in the shadow of his palace. Beyond the city, the planet was covered with factories and military bases. Everything existed to serve the Empire's hunger for conquest. "If humans have returned," Vexka said slowly, "we must learn their strength. Send scout fleets to find this ship. Use our fastest vessels. Do not engage. Just watch and report." "Yes, my Emperor." But General Morthek never got the chance to send those scout fleets. 2 hours later, alarms began screaming throughout the palace. Vexka rushed to his command center where his military leaders gathered around tactical displays. "Report," the Emperor commanded. "My Emperor," the duty officer said with fear in his voice. "Long-range sensors are detecting multiple contacts at the edge of our system." "Large contacts? How large?" "Larger than anything in our fleet, my Emperor." "And there are many of them." Vexka felt something he had not felt in decades. Uncertainty. "How many?" 12 ships, my Emperor. All of them massive. All approaching our world." The Emperor looked at the tactical display. 12 red dots moved steadily toward Korthak Prime. Their estimated size made even his largest dreadnoughts look like children's toys. "Time until they reach us?" 6 hours, my Emperor, Vexka thought quickly. "Summon the home fleet, all of it. Every ship in the system. And send messages to the nearest sectors. I want every available vessel here within 4 hours. My Emperor, that will leave our outer territories undefended. If these humans defeat us here, our outer territories will not matter," Vexka replied grimly. For the next 4 hours, ships poured into the Korthak system. Battleships and cruisers. Carriers full of fighters. Assault ships loaded with troops. The pride of the Vorth Empire gathered to defend its heart. 300 ships formed defensive lines around Korthak Prime. The planet's orbital defenses powered up. Weapon platforms that could crack moons charged their guns. It was the greatest military force the Vorth had ever assembled. And then the humans arrived. 12 ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Each one was a giant of metal and mystery. They moved in perfect formation, ignoring the Vorth fleet as if it did not exist. Emperor Vexka stood in his command center, watching the tactical display with growing dread. His 300 ships looked numerous until compared to the size of the human vessels. "Open a channel," he ordered. A moment later, a human voice filled the command center. It was calm and cold, speaking perfect Vorth language. "This is Admiral Sarah Martinez of the Terran Liberation Fleet. Emperor Vexka, your empire ends today." Vexka found his voice. "I am the ruler of 40 star systems, human. I command the greatest military force this galaxy has ever seen. You are 12 ships against my hundreds." "Yes," the human admiral replied simply. "It hardly seems fair. Perhaps you should surrender." The Emperor's rage overcame his fear. "I am Vorth. We do not surrender. All ships attack. Destroy the invaders." The space around Korthak Prime erupted in fire and death. The Vorth fleet launched everything it had. Missiles by the thousands, energy beams that could melt asteroids, fighter squadrons that darkened space with their numbers. The orbital platforms added their firepower to the storm. The human ships took every hit without even slowing down. Their hulls absorbed weapons fire that should have destroyed them instantly. When the first wave of attacks ended, all 12 human vessels were undamaged. "Our turn," Admiral Martinez said. What happened next would be remembered as long as any Vorth lived to remember it. The human ships opened fire with weapons that redefined the meaning of destruction. Beams of impossible light reached out and touched Vorth vessels. Where they touched, matter simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, simply gone. 50 Vorth ships vanished in the first salvo. The humans had other weapons too, missiles that split into swarms of smaller missiles, each one seeking a different target. Energy fields that wrapped around enemy ships and crushed them like invisible fists. Clouds of tiny machines that ate through hulls and turned proud warships into floating scrap. The orbital platforms lasted 15 minutes. 300 years of Vorth military engineering deleted from existence by weapons that seemed to mock the laws of physics. Emperor Vexka watched his empire die on the tactical display. Red dots disappeared one by one until only the human ships remained. "This is impossible," he whispered. Admiral Martinez's voice came over the speakers again. "Emperor Vexka, you are the last. Surrender now and you will be allowed to live. Refuse and join your fleet." Vexka looked around his command center. His officers stared at him with terror in their compound eyes. Outside, the capital city was in panic as word of the fleet's destruction spread. "What do you want?" the Emperor asked. "The immediate release of all slaves in your empire. The return of all conquered worlds to their original inhabitants. The complete dismantling of your military forces. And if I refuse, then we will dismantle them ourselves, along with every Vorth world in the galaxy." Vexka knew the humans were not bluffing. He had just seen them destroy the greatest fleet in Vorth history without taking a single casualty. He began. You have 10 minutes to decide. Admiral Martinez interrupted. After that, we begin liberating your worlds with or without your cooperation. The Emperor of the Vorth Empire, ruler of 40 star systems and enslaver of billions, sat down heavily in his throne. Outside his window, the burning wreckage of his fleet fell toward the planet like falling stars. 10 minutes to surrender everything he had built. Or 10 minutes until his species joined the Krar in extinction. For the first time in his life, Emperor Vexka understood what it meant to be powerless. From the void came a human warship. Part 3. 2 days after the battle, Captain Zara Keth stood in the docking bay of the human warship Defiant. She had never seen anything like it. The walls were made of some metal that seemed to shift color when she was not looking directly at it. Lights moved along patterns in the ceiling like living things. Everything hummed with power that felt almost alive. Captain Marcus Chen met her at the airlock. He was tall for a human, with dark hair and eyes that looked much older than his face. He wore a simple uniform that was black with silver trim. No decorations or rank symbols, but something about him made Zara want to stand straighter. "Welcome aboard the Defiant, Captain Keth," Chen said. His voice was warm, but Zara could hear steel underneath it. "How are your people doing?" "Better, thanks to the supplies you gave us," Zara replied. "The medical equipment you sent over saved 12 lives already." "And the food?" She paused. "It tastes like nothing we have ever eaten before." Chen smiled slightly. "Earth food. We brought seeds and growing machines with us. Old Earth died a long time ago, but we kept the plants alive." They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The ship was huge from outside, but inside it felt even bigger, like it folded space somehow to hold more than it should. "Captain Chen," Zara said as they walked, "my people are grateful for your help. But I need to understand. What do you want from us?" "Nothing," Chen said simply. "Nothing. Your people asked for help, we gave it. That is enough." Zara had been a traitor her whole life. She knew that no one gave something for nothing. But surely there must be something. Information? Trade agreements? Safe passage rights? Chen stopped walking and looked at her. His old eyes were sad. "Captain Keth, humans learned long ago that some things should be done simply because they are right. Helping people who cannot help themselves is one of those things." They continued walking. Zara saw human crew members working at stations along the corridors. They all looked young and healthy, but their eyes were old like their captains, like they had seen too much. "How many humans came back?" Zara asked. "Not many," Chen replied. "Most of our people are still out there in the dark between galaxies, building new worlds, living peaceful lives. Only a few of us wanted to return." "Why did you want to return?" Chen did not answer for a moment. They entered a large room with a table in the center. Star charts covered the walls. Not just maps of this galaxy, but others too. Dozens of them. "Because someone has to," Chen finally said. "The Vorth are not the first empire to try and conquer everything. They will not be the last. Sometimes peaceful people need someone to stand between them and the dark." Zara looked at the star charts. So many galaxies. So many worlds. "How long have humans been traveling between galaxies?" "About 800 years, Chen said. "We left this galaxy when we realized we were becoming something terrible. We had too much power, too many weapons. We were starting to think like conquerors instead of explorers." He pointed to one of the charts. It showed a galaxy much like their own, but every star was marked with a red symbol. "This was the hegemony of Krar," Chen said. "A race of warriors who thought they were destined to rule everything. They conquered 3 galaxies before we met them. What happened to them?" Chen's expression grew dark. "We happened to them. We tried talking first, tried negotiating, tried offering them better ways to live. They responded by destroying 2 human colonies and enslaving the survivors." Zara felt cold suddenly. "So you fought them?" "We erased them," Chen said quietly. "All of them. Every ship, every world, every last member of their species. We turned 3 galaxies worth of Krar worlds into empty space." The room was very quiet. Zara could hear her own heartbeat. "That was when we realized we had to leave," Chen continued. "We had become the thing we were fighting, destroyers, monsters. So we gathered our people and ships and left for the void between galaxies. But you came back. Some of us came back. Because we learned that running away from power does not make you a good person. Using power to help others does. Zara thought about the battle she had witnessed. One human ship destroying 100 Vorth vessels without effort. If humans could do that with one ship, what could they do with many ships? Captain Chen, how powerful are humans now? Chen walked to another star chart. This one showed their own galaxy, but it was covered with strange symbols and numbers. After 800 years in the void, we learned things that no one in this galaxy knows, he said. We learned how to make energy from nothing, how to fold space and time, how to build weapons that can destroy stars. He looked at her with those old, sad eyes. We learned how to become gods, Captain Keth, but we also learned that gods should not rule. They should serve. Is that why you saved us? To serve? Yes. And to remember who we used to be before we became powerful. Zara looked at the star charts again. She began to understand the true scope of what she was seeing. How many human ships are coming back? Enough, Chen said. The Vorth Empire controls about 40% of this galaxy. They have destroyed or enslaved hundreds of races. That cannot continue. You are going to war with the entire Vorth Empire? We are going to end the Vorth Empire, Chen corrected. There is a difference. The difference being that the Vorth would have no chance at all, Zara realized. They were insects facing a storm. What about other races? The ones who are not Vorth but work with them? Chen's expression softened slightly. Everyone will get a choice. Stop helping the Vorth and live in peace. Keep helping them and share their fate. And after the Vorth are gone, will humans rule the galaxy? No, Chen said firmly. We will help people rebuild. Help them learn to defend themselves. Then we will leave again. You will leave? This galaxy belongs to the people who live in it, not to us. We are just visiting. Zara felt a mix of hope and fear. Hope that her people might truly be safe. Fear of what the humans might do to achieve that safety. Captain Chen, when you destroyed the Krar, how did you live with what you had done? Chen was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. We did not live with it, Captain Keith. We died with it. Every human who took part in that war died a little inside. That is why we left. That is why most of us are still gone. And that is why the few of us who came back will leave again when this is over. He turned to look at her directly. Power like ours comes with a price. We pay it so that others do not have to. Zara understood then. The humans were not heroes coming to save the galaxy. They were ghosts of heroes, carrying the weight of terrible choices so that others could sleep safely. And somehow, that made their sacrifice even greater. From the void came a human warship. Part 2, the giant ship hung in space like a mountain made of metal and mystery. Both the Kalani and Vorth fleets had stopped fighting. Everyone stared at the newcomer that had torn through space itself to arrive at this battle. Captain Zara Keth felt her breath catch in her throat. The ship was enormous, easily twice the size of the largest Vorth battleship. Its gray hull reflected no light, making it look like a piece of the void itself had taken shape. Captain, her communications officer said with a shaking voice, we are getting a transmission from the unknown vessel. Put it through, Zara ordered. A voice came over the speakers. It was deep and calm, speaking in accented but clear Kalani. This is Captain Marcus Chen of the Earth ship Defiant. We received your distress signal. Sorry we are late. Zara could not speak for a moment. Earth ship. That meant humans. But humans were legends. Stories from the old days when the galaxy was young. You are human? She finally asked. That we are, the voice replied. And you are Kalani, if I remember right. Peaceful people. Good traders. We knew your ancestors long ago. The Vorth commander broke into the channel. His voice was full of rage and confusion. What are you? Identify yourself or be destroyed. There was a pause. When the human captain spoke again, his voice was colder than deep space. I am Captain Chen of the Terran Defense Force. And you, bug boy, just threatened the wrong ship. The Vorth fleet began moving toward the human vessel. They formed attack lines, weapons charging. 100 ships against one. Even with their surprise, the humans seemed doomed. This is impossible, Zara's first officer whispered. Humans vanished 1,000 years ago. Everyone knows the stories. They left the galaxy and never came back. Zara watched the massive ship on her screen. Maybe the stories were wrong. The Vorth commander spoke again. I do not care what you are, stranger. This is Vorth space now. These refugees are our property. Leave or join them in death. The human captain laughed. It was not a happy sound. Vorth space? Since when do cockroaches own anything? The insult made the Vorth commander scream in rage. All ships attack! Destroy the intruder! 100 Vorth ships opened fire at once. Beams of deadly energy and swarms of missiles flew toward the human vessel, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The human ship did not try to dodge. It just sat there taking every hit. Explosions covered its hull in fire and light. The Vorth weapons were powerful enough to crack planets. When the fire cleared, the human ship was still there. Not even scratched. Its hull had not even been marked by the attack that should have destroyed it. Completely. Impossible, the Vorth commander snarled. Our turn, the human captain said simply. The human ship opened fire. Zara had seen many weapons in her life as a ship captain. Kalani trading vessels carried light guns for pirates. She had seen Vorth weapons destroy her world. But she had never seen anything like what came from the human ship. Beams of pure white light shot out from the human vessel. Not the red or blue energy beams that most ships used. These were different. They moved faster than anything should move. When they hit Vorth ships, the enemy vessels did not explode. They simply stopped existing. One moment a Vorth battleship was there. The next moment there was empty space where it used to be. No explosion, no wreckage, just nothing. 3 Vorth ships vanished in the first second, then 5 more. The human weapons fired again and again. Each shot erased another enemy ship from reality. The Vorth fleet tried to retreat, but it was too late. The human ship moved with impossible speed. It should have been too large to move so fast, but it flowed through space like liquid mercury. More weapons opened along the human ship's hull, different types this time. Some fired missiles that chased down fleeing Vorth ships and consumed them in balls of strange green fire. Others launched clouds of tiny objects that swarmed over enemy vessels like metal insects, eating through their hulls. In less than 10 minutes, the battle was over. 100 Vorth ships had been destroyed. Not one human ship had been lost, because there was only one human ship. The space around them was empty except for the Kalani refugee fleet and the massive gray warship. This is impossible, Zara whispered. One ship cannot defeat 100. Her first officer was staring at his instruments. Captain, I am reading the human ship's energy output. It is higher than our entire fleet combined, maybe higher than our entire civilization ever produced. Zara felt very small suddenly. If humans could build ships like this, what else could they do? The human captain's voice came over the radio again. Kalani fleet, this is Captain Chen. Are your people hurt? Do you need medical help or supplies? Zara found her voice. Captain Chen, we have wounded, and our food supplies are running low. But how are you here? Humans left the galaxy long ago. We did leave, Chen replied, but we never stopped watching. When we heard that the Vorth were destroying peaceful worlds, some of us decided to come back. Some of you? This is just one ship, Captain Keth. There are others. Zara felt hope for the first time in months. You will help us find a new home? More than that, Chen said. We are going to help you take back your old home. The Kalani captain could not believe what she was hearing. Take back our world? But it is destroyed. The Vorth burned everything. Worlds can be rebuilt, the human said. We have done it before, but first we need to deal with the Vorth Empire. Deal with them how? There was a pause. When Chen spoke again, his voice was quiet but full of promise. The same way we just dealt with this fleet. The Vorth think they are the strongest race in the galaxy. Time to show them they are wrong. Zara looked at her refugee fleet, thousands of her people in old cargo ships running from an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. Now a human warship from the void was offering to help them fight back. Captain Chen, she said carefully, if humans are so powerful, why did you leave the galaxy in the first place? Another pause. This one longer. That is a long story, Captain Keth, and not a happy one. We left because we were afraid of what we might become if we stayed. Afraid of what we might do to people like you. Zara did not understand, but something in the human's voice made her shiver. But the Vorth changed things. Chen continued. They are destroying races that cannot defend themselves. Good people. Peaceful people. So some of us decided that maybe it was time to remember how to be heroes instead of monsters. The word monsters hung in space between them like a cold wind. What kind of people called themselves monsters? And what did it mean that they were coming back? From the void came a human warship. When no help was expected, the stars burned cold in the endless dark of space. Captain Zara Keth stood on the bridge of her ship, the Morning Star, watching the enemy fleet grow larger on her screens. Her hand shook as she counted the ships. 100, maybe more, all of them pointing their weapons at her small fleet of 20 vessels. "Captain," her first officer said, his voice quiet and afraid. "They are asking us to surrender again." Zara closed her eyes for a moment. Her people had been running for 3 months now. The Vorth Empire had destroyed their homeworld. Millions of her people were dead. The survivors filled cargo ships and old mining vessels. They had nowhere to go and no one to help them. "Tell them no," Zara said. Her voice was steady, but her heart was breaking. "We will not surrender." The Vorth were a cruel race. They looked like giant insects with 4 arms and black eyes that showed no mercy. They had been taking over star systems for 50 years. No one could stop them. They were too strong, too many, and too smart in war. Zara's people, the Kalani, were peaceful traders. They built things and sold them to other worlds. They made art and music. They never learned how to fight real wars. Now they were paying the price for their gentle ways. "Captain, the refugee ships are asking what to do," another officer said. Zara looked at the screen showing her small fleet. Most of the ships were not even warships. They were cargo haulers filled with families, children, old people, the sick and wounded, all that was left of her race. "Tell them to stay behind us," she said. "We will protect them as long as we can." But Zara knew they could not win. Her 20 ships were old and weak. The Vorth had new weapons that could punch through their shields like paper. In a few hours, maybe less, her people would all be dead or slaves. The enemy commander spoke over the radio. His voice was like grinding metal. "Little fish," he said in broken Kalani words. "You swim in deep water. Surrender now and some may live. Fight us and all will die." Zara picked up the radio. "This is Captain Keth of the Kalani fleet. You destroyed our world. You killed our families. We will not bow to you." The Vorth commander made a sound like angry buzzing. "Then you will die like your world died." In fire and screaming, the communication ended. Zara knew the attack would come soon. She walked around her bridge, looking at her crew. Young faces and old ones, all of them afraid but trying to be brave. They trusted her to find a way to save them. "All ships," Zara said into her radio. "This is your captain. Today we face an enemy that wants to destroy everything we love. We are few and they are many. Our ships are old and theirs are new. But we fight for something they cannot understand. We fight for our families, for our children, for the memory of our beautiful world." She could hear similar speeches being given on the other ships. Brave words before a hopeless battle. "Captain," the weapons officer said. "Enemy ships are moving into attack formation." Zara nodded. "All ships prepare for battle. Protect the refugees. Make them pay for every life they take." The Vorth fleet moved like a great dark cloud across the stars. Their ships were black and covered in sharp edges. They looked like the nightmares of peaceful people. Weapons charged with deadly light. Shields shimmered around each vessel. "Enemy missiles launched," someone called out. "All ships evasive action," Zara ordered. "Return fire." The battle began with fire and light. The Kalani ships moved as fast as they could, trying to dodge the enemy weapons. They fired back with everything they had, but their old guns barely scratched the Vorth shields. The first Kalani ship died within minutes. The cargo vessel Happy Trader exploded in a ball of flame. 50 people died in that first moment. "They are targeting the refugee ships," the first officer said. "All warships move to protect them," Zara ordered. But there were too many enemies and too few defenders. Another ship died. Then another. The Vorth were playing with them, Zara realized. They could have destroyed the entire fleet quickly. Instead, they were taking their time, enjoying the hunt. "Captain, we are receiving a strange signal," the communications officer said. "It is not from the Vorth." "What kind of signal?" "I do not know. It is very weak and coming from empty space," Zara frowned. There was nothing in that part of space. No planets, no stations, just the cold dark between stars. "Can you clean up the signal?" "I am trying, Captain." More Kalani ships died. The refugees were crying over the radio. Children asking where their parents were. Old people praying to gods that seemed to have abandoned them. Then the communications officer looked up with wide eyes. "Captain, I got the signal clear. It says help is coming. From who?" Zara asked, unknown. "The signal is using an old emergency frequency that no one has used for 100 years. Zara looked at the battle raging around them. Half her fleet was gone. The Vorth were closing in for the final attack. Maybe someone was playing a cruel joke. Maybe her crew was starting to lose their minds. There, the sensor officer said suddenly, something is coming out of hyperspace. On the main screen, space began to bend and twist. Light stretched like rubber. Then something huge tore through the fabric of space itself. A ship emerged from the impossible. But it was not like any ship Zara had ever seen. It was massive, bigger than anything in the Vorth fleet. Its hull was a strange gray metal that seemed to drink in the light of stars. Along its sides were weapons that looked ancient but somehow still dangerous. "What is that?" someone whispered. Zara stared at the unknown ship. It hung in space like a sleeping giant, dwarfing even the largest Vorth vessels. Strange symbols covered its hull. Symbols that looked almost like... "Those are human markings," the first officer said in shock. But that was impossible. Humans were just myths. Stories told by old traders about a lost race that had vanished into the dark between galaxies, long before any living person was born.